Okay, level 2s in Objective 18 are writing the equation of basically parallel and perpendicular lines and figuring out the slopes between the two of them. So before we get going on that, let's talk about the three different forms that we're going to write our equations of our lines in. The first one is called point slope form. This is the form that I will usually always start writing the equation of the lines in. It's very easy to manipulate, and it's just really easy just to start writing the equation of a line. So you're going to start with y minus y1 equals your slope times x minus x1. Okay, where y1 is the y coordinate of a point. You know that your slope is m. And then x1 is the x coordinate of a point. Okay. The first x and the first y, so y and, whoops, not that one. And this one over here, those will always just stay x and y. You'll never substitute in for those because an equation of a line or just a line in general has x and y in your answer because it needs to have a relationship between the two. So like I said, point slope form is something that I will always start writing the equation of a line from and then manipulate based on what form I want to end in. Let's go down to slope intercept form. Slope intercept form is where you take point slope form and solve for y. So it's going to be y equals mx plus b. Okay, where m is your slope. And when you solve for b after starting in point slope form, when you solve, b it just happens to be your y-intercept. So unless you're given the y-intercept in the problem, I wouldn't start in this form by substituting things in. Again, I always will start in point slope form. I think it's a really good habit for you to get into. The last form that we're going to talk about is standard form. This may or may not be something that you've seen before. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. So a couple rules with standard form is that we need all a, b, and c to be whole numbers. So no fractions. And I know you guys will be happy because you hate fractions. So we can't have any fractions in standard form, and we'll take a look at how to fix that throughout the week and then throughout these notes. The second rule is that a must be positive. Okay, so if a happens to be negative when we move things around, just multiply everything by -1 and it'll take care of it. So b and c can be negative, but a always has to be positive. Okay, so those are the three forms that we'll start talking about. The last two things that we need to talk about and discuss are the difference between parallel and perpendicular. Remember, parallel lines are two lines that are going to go in the same direction. It's like those two green ones that I just drew. Those are going to have the same or equal slopes. So if one line has a slope of 1/2, guess what? The other one's going to have a slope of 1/2. Now, perpendicular lines, those are two lines or segments that meet at right angles. Those slopes are going to be opposite, meaning positive and negative, and they're also going to be reciprocals. So if one slope was 1/2, the perpendicular slope would be -2/1. Okay, so you're just, the reciprocal part just flips it, and then the opposite, either if it starts out positive, it'll become negative, and if it starts out negative, it will become positive. So it just changes the sign of the slope. Okay, let's look at 3 now. Write the equation of a line that passes through -3, -5, and is parallel to the line y equals 3x minus 1 in standard form. Okay, so just a reminder, your standard form, what it was above, was ax plus by equals c. Okay, where a, b, and c are all numbers. So I don't know what those are, so again, I'm going to start in point slope form and figure out what I need to get there. So if I have this line y equals 3x minus 1 and I want to write something parallel to it, the only thing that I'm going to take from this is the slope. The slope of this line is 3. And if I want to write a line that's parallel to that, the slope of the new line is also going to be 3 because it's going to be the same. So now the question is, write the equation of a line with a slope of 3 through -3, -5. So this just became something very familiar to you, hopefully. If it didn't, but this is just what we're doing. We're taking a slope, we've got a point, we're going to put it into, I'm going to put it into point slope form. So I'm going to have y minus y1, which is -5, equals the slope of 3 times x minus x1, which is also -3. Sorry, my heater is really loud. Okay, so I'm going to simplify this. So minus a negative is going to be a positive 5. And then minus a -3 is going to be a positive 3. And now to get this into standard form, I'm going to distribute the 3. And then I'm going to get the x's and y's on one side. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. And then at the same time, I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 5. So I've got -3x plus y equals 4. So two things that we have to check in standard form is, are all the numbers whole numbers? And in this case, they are. And then is a positive number? And in this case, it isn't. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by -1 just to change all the signs. So your final answer, I'm going to bring it over here because I have more room, will be 3x minus y equals -4. Alright, number 4, write a linear function, g of x, that's just writing the equation of a line like we've been doing, that's perpendicular to the line 4y plus 2x equals 12 and contains the point f of 8 equals -1. Okay, so let's ignore this g of x for now that we want to write this equation. That's going to come in at the end. What I want to focus on is this f of 8 equals -1. What this means is that when x equals 8, y equals -1. Basically saying I have this point 8, -1. Okay, so that's the point that I'm writing this equation through. The second thing is I need the slope. So if I know that this new line has a slope that's perpendicular to this old line, let's first find the slope of this old line. And I'm going to do that by solving for y. So I'm going to subtract the 2x over. And then I'm going to divide everything by 4. So now that I know what the slope was of the old one, and I want to write the perpendicular line, so I need the perpendicular slope. So I'm going to take 1/2 and flip it to be 2 over 1, or you can just write 2. And then since it started off to be negative from the original line, your perpendicular slope is going to be the opposite. It will be positive. Okay, last and final step is writing the equation of the line with the slope of 2 and the point 8, negative 1. So I'm going to take y minus negative 1 equals 2 times x minus 8. And then since it asks us to write in function notation, so it wants us to write it as g of x, what you need to do first is then just solve for y and just subtract 1 from both sides. So you're going to get y equals 2x minus 17. And then all you're going to do is you're going to replace the y with g of x. So final answer would be g of x equals 2x minus 17. So basically putting it in the slope-intercept form and then taking the y out and replacing it with g of x or whatever the function is called.